Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. We have got some big updates to go through today. Chelsea news, Jhon Duran, Michael Olise, Noni Madueke, and we're going to discuss various other links that might happen as a result of these transfer stories starting to gather some pace. It's that time now. The transfer window is open. The Euros begins today and Chelsea are trying to get their business done early. I'm going to talk about what that means. We're going to talk about historically how Chelsea have benefited by not waiting until the end of transfer windows, giving a new manager the squad that he wants to work with as soon as he can. And obviously with the Euros beginning today, it isn't one of those summers where Enzo Maresca can call the players in, curtail the summer holidays early and be like, right, we've got work to do. The Euros are probably going to see a fair amount of Chelsea players staying late into the competition because we've got good quality players. England, of course, we're going to win it, which means Cole Palmer and Conor Gallagher won't be working with Enzo Maresca until late into July when we go on a pre-season tour. However, before we get into today's Chelsea news, I'm excited about this one. Make sure you're subscribed to the George Benson football channel so you don't miss any of the content over the course of the summer. We're creeping up towards 300,000 subscribers and I would love to hit it before we go to the US for Chelsea's pre-season tour. Smack a like on today's video. Also, if you haven't already done so, we begin with a dagger from David Ornstein. It's not quite a dagger. Newcastle United and Bayern Munich contact Crystal Palace over the possibility of signing Michael Olise. Newcastle and Bayern expressed interest on Wednesday before Chelsea today. Now, that was yesterday that Chelsea expressed the interest officially, starting to communicate with Crystal Palace about the Michael Olise signing. All sought permission to speak with the 22-year-old France youth wingers camp. So, there's also a video that was posted by Ornstein that explains a little bit about the usual way that these kind of transfers work. When a player's got a release clause, it's very common in modern football. It used to be called tapping up back in the day. But in the modern era, it's very common for football clubs to speak with a player, agree verbally the personal terms with that player, and then go to the club to try and discuss what the fee's going to be. Is it going to be the release clause? Will a club kind of try and skimp out on it a little bit? Lower that fee. I say skimp out as if this is literally like buying a packet of Wotsits from the flipping supermarket and you're an 8-year-old who's got about 5p less than the value of the crisp. It's not quite that. This is football, and we're talking millions upon millions of pounds. But the official communications have begun between Chelsea and Crystal Palace. This is from Fabrizio Romano now. Chelsea have approached Crystal Palace today to ask about further details of Michael Olise release clause. He's among top targets as for Chelsea again. CFC asked for permission to talk with the player's side. Race still open with several clubs keen. Chelsea are now pushing. What we've seen before, when Chelsea start to push for players, we've had a knack over the years of getting things over the line quickly. When Chelsea start to go aggressive in the transfer market, we very rarely miss. Now, I'm not going to say that here and say the deal is absolutely done for Michael Olise, but the fact that Chelsea have been in for him now for 2 years in a row, I have a funny feeling that Chelsea are going to be able to get their man. And I think what Chelsea have been doing here is kind of understanding what that release clause is. There was a rumour, I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but the Olise release clause is at 60 million only if it's a team that are going to be in the Champions League. And of course, Chelsea are not in the Champions League. So what does that mean? If within that release clause, it is 60 million for Champions League clubs, then Chelsea can't go straight to Michael Olise and be like, look, we want to sign you. This is what we want to pay you. All right, cool, done. We're going to go to Palace now. And the Palace will be like, no. You don't have Champions League football, so it's a different deal for you. So I think what Chelsea have done now is we understand the kind of waters that we're trying to tread in here. And we are starting Operation Olise. It sounds so dramatic, doesn't it? It sounds like we're trying to flip and extract this bloke after he's been kidnapped or something. You know what I mean? But I'm confident here. I'm starting to believe that Chelsea will get their man. And I think what we're doing is being careful that we're not going to get absolutely slapped up by Crystal Palace when it comes to the money that they want this to cost. They obviously know that Olise is an incredible talent. There are multiple different clubs that are after him. Some of them Champions League clubs, some of them not Champions League clubs. But I've just got a funny feeling that we are going to absolutely get this one done. So it's not as simple as triggering the release clause, but Chelsea have wanted this guy now for so long, and I firmly think that very soon we are going to be able to get this one done. The next deal that Chelsea are moving quickly on. Chelsea granted permission to speak to Jhon Duran as Villa inquire about Ian Maatsen. Villa also remain interested in Gallagher, but will only sign a Chelsea player if Duran goes to Stamford Bridge. Now, we've got to break this one up into multiple different parts. Jhon Duran is a player that Aston Villa value incredibly highly. Aston Villa, in order to comply with PSR rulings, which is financial rulings, they have to sell players. Jhon Duran is wanted by Chelsea. Aston Villa are trying to squeeze about 40 million quid out of Chelsea for Jhon Duran. When you look at other strikers that we have been rumoured to be interested in, Osimhen's for 100 plus million. Seshko is staying at RB Leipzig, no longer an option. Victor Gyökeres, probably in excess of 70 million quid. This is a cheap option for Chelsea. And my thoughts on this have been clear this week. I think Chelsea needed someone that can guarantee you goals. But then there was also the devil's advocate argument that many people reminded me on social media that we've spent money on the guaranteed marksman, the guaranteed goal scorer before. And because of the flipping heck. You know what? Like the curse of the number 9. We just need to buy someone who, A, wants to be a Chelsea player. And Jhon Duran, considering there's teams in Italy that want him, he wants to be a Chelsea player. Romelu Lukaku. No one's ever going to be able to tell me anything different here. I think Lukaku knew what he was doing the whole flipping time to get the money for Inter Milan. I don't think he ever really wanted to be a Chelsea player. The last striker that we bought, who clearly wants to be a Chelsea player and delivered, is Nicholas Jackson. And I think Nicholas Jackson, as much as I've believed all summer, Chelsea need to sign a top striker. I think that is the way that we help Nicholas Jackson get better. But at the same time, when you start to add also players around like Michael Olise, you see Cole Palmer now as like a proper number 10. Esteval Willian coming forward. Kendrick Pyers coming next summer. Chelsea is starting to make this attack look incredibly good. Christopher Nkunku as well. So the more I start to think about it like that, I start to believe that maybe another young, hungry player, if you look at Jhon Duran, he scores some incredible goals. He can hit the ball incredibly hard with his left foot. And look, I can hit the ball hard if I go down the flipping field and hit a ball at a goal with no net in it. Anyone can hit the ball hard. But with Jhon Duran, I think this is simply a case of Aston Villa had Ollie Watkins last season who could literally walk into almost any side in the Premier League. So as much as he didn't start many games, he couldn't really start many games, and he's got Ollie Watkins ahead of him. So I do think there is untapped potential. I've seen a few people say that on social media. And instead of busting the bank to bring in a striker that, absolutely could flop, I thought that was definitely the right thing to do. But the more I look into Duran, I think he's got that edge about him. I think there is a certain element of his game where he likes to take the piss out there on the field. He likes to get involved. He likes to get a bit feisty. That's the kind of Chelsea striker that I think we need. And I think that's the kind of player that can bring the best out of a Nicholas Jackson, push Nicholas Jackson. And at 40 million, look, strikers these days in modern football, it's ridiculous. I'm not saying that I've turned here and I believe that Jhon Duran is 100% going to work, but the more I look at his game, the more I look at the way he can finish, I'm like, just give it a go. Do you know what I mean? If Nkunku can stay fit, you bring Michael Olise, an unbelievable creator, a goal scorer also, Cole Palmer, second top scorer in the Premier League last season. Look, I don't think we're going to struggle for goals. Now, when it comes to Ian Maatsen potentially going the other way, I think Chelsea are going to have to pay cash here. If we're looking at trying to sell Ian Maatsen for 35 million, Borussia Dortmund, I think it's too expensive for them. So they say, they're flipping get loads of money in for players that they've sold. So I don't really get why they don't have the money. They're just trying to buy a cheap packet of crisps again, aren't they? It's difficult to know if Chelsea will be able to offer any players that Aston Villa might want. Obviously, Gallagher, don't want him sold. I've gone over it over and over again. Ian Maatsen, for whatever reason, I just think Chelsea have decided they want to sell him. It is a bit odd, the way that we do just want to throw players away, yet Ian Maatsen was so good for Borussia Dortmund, although, as everyone will remind you, he gave away the goals against Real Madrid. Look, come on. Every player makes mistakes, but there could be a way that Chelsea do get this deal done for Duran, and they're able to offer Ian Maatsen as a make-weight. But I will say, if Aston Villa do need to sell players, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work. Is it going to be cash from Chelsea, and then it's a separate deal for Ian Maatsen, or are we going to try and work something out here? And does that mean if we bring in Jhon Duran, could we still bring in another striker in this transfer window, or is it just Jhon Duran? I'm not being greedy, but we are hearing that Tammy Abraham may be on his way back to the Premier League for as little as 20 million quid this summer. Interesting. I could see him going to Aston Villa, to be honest, to be the second. 20 million for Tammy Abraham. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. The final piece of news that we're going to discuss today, Newcastle have Olise and Noni Madueke on the right winger shortlist. Intriguing window ahead, really top targets, but also need to raise funds for PSR reasons. For this reason, I don't think Newcastle will get Michael Olise because they do need to raise cash right now. But if Chelsea do bring Olise in, what do you think will happen to Noni? Personally, I think Noni Madueke grew into a really good player towards the end of the season. There were times last year that I was like, look, I don't really know if this guy is going to be it. He's got a lot of raw ability, but like, how is he going to channel it? How is he going to mold his game? Towards the end of the season, he was one of our best players. He was one of the most important players in the team with the system that we were playing. And as much as, look, we got Esteval Willian coming in next January. He got 2 assists last night for Palmeiras. The guy looks unreal. In my mind, the best thing to do with Noni is keep him right now. He's hungry. He wants to be competing with quality players. Let him fight with Olise for that right wing position. Let them rotate. And then if it comes to a point where Esteval Willian comes in and he really is the player that we think he might be, and he really is that good, that's when you sell Noni Madueke. Or that's when you sell one of them. But I think Noni would be the one to go. At this point, I don't want to sell Madueke. I think it would be incredible to see him fighting with Olise on that right-hand side if Chelsea can get it done. But Newcastle, they're interested. I've also read somewhere that Palace also might be interested in Madueke if indeed Olise does move. Let me know your thoughts on the latest on these deals in the comments down below. It's been a bit of a weird week, really, because I'm trying to get excited for the Euros, but at the same time, Chelsea are just, the business is ticking, and I'm so excited for our next season. I really am. Smack a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new. Come on, you Blues.